Hey everyone, Kate Bora and Fiona Pearman joining you for this week's Facebook Live, where we're continuing our conversation around resilience. And I think, Fee, the conversation we're going to have today is around beyond resilience, or how we're changing the conversation around resilience. I think we've had lots of people and lots of good discussion and focus around resilience, self-care over the course of the last couple of years with the pandemic. And I think what we're starting to hear from people is, there's only so much yoga and meditation I can do. And so, next week, we've got a webinar that's really going to talk more about how do we actually dig into this conversation to start to treat some of the causes of, what's going on around the need to be resilient. But for today, let's have a little bit more of a chat around the different dimensions of resilience, because I think in some contexts, in some communities, we've really just stuck around or thinking around physical resilience.
Yeah, we can default to the kind of straightforward, the easy, what we've always done, what we've been told works, and that will work for a while. But the problem we have now is we've got so much build-up, so much emotional load, so much mental energy has drained out of us. So I think there's a really good opportunity to start to think about where are the places that I could resource myself, and how could I draw on more than just those kind of fairly superficial, simple ways? What are the more sustainable ways that I can engage with resilience, and what might those look like for me? And again, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. It's going to be starting to get more conscious, starting to maybe develop more self-awareness about what might work for you, and then digging in and, of course, as we always say, trying things, experimenting and seeing what works for you. So we know, of course, physical resilience is part of the picture. We want to make sure that we're attending to things like sleep, like we're conscious of diet, potentially how much alcohol and coffee we're drinking, and making sure that, there is a reasonable amount of exercise. We know when we move our bodies, that does shift things, it does make it easier. So definitely being conscious of the physical is important, and it's a great first step, and often it's an easy step to start with.
Yeah, I think, we talk about this and we practice this a lot ourselves, right? And we've got a lot on when we need to really show up, the conversation around high performance, how we treat our physical body, our physiology is so important. It has a ripple effect, a flow-on effect to how we feel mentally, how we feel emotionally, how we feel spiritually as well. I think the beautiful thing, and we look at resilience from those four categories, right? 4 dimensions of resilience: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I think the beautiful thing around a lot of our strategies, our self-care strategies that focus on the physical, is that they do tend to the mental and sometimes the emotional and the spiritual. And so I think the trick here is to really start to proactively develop your toolkit. We've got a great PDF that we'll make sure the link is in the comments below, 30 self-care strategies. And it looks at it from the physical, mental and emotional perspective as well, but really figuring out what works for you. And I think the other thing is some things will work and then they won't work, right? Like things change. And what was really effective perhaps 6 months ago isn't so effective now because the environment and the context has changed. So I think there's always experimentation going on here, always really useful. We're huge advocates of just really having your go-to strategy, and that's what the PDF really supports you to do, is, what are the couple of things that you can, when you're feeling burnt out, when you're feeling like you're running on empty, when you're mentally overloaded or emotionally empty, how do I fill my fuel tank back up so that I can show up and be the best version of myself that I can be, and being really conscious of that. You've talked about sleep. Fee, let's talk a little bit about mental resilience.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of things that we can do here. And one of the things is to start to notice when the cognitive overload's becoming too much, when we are feeling as though, oh my God, I can't even think through this problem. I can't deal with anything more. And this can be simply that, potentially we've taken on too many projects at once, or maybe people have generously given us too many projects at once. And again, just starting to think about, well, what works for me now? What are ways in which I could make sure that I'm, able to say no to the things that I can't do right now, or that I'm actually, including other people or getting help where I need it, starting to recognize early as possible, I'm simply not going to be able to perform at this level, which is, always when we start to feel that sort of lurch towards burnout or overwhelm, what is it I can cut back on, or how can I start to manage things a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Here's a really good example now around treating the symptom versus the cause, right? When we are in mental overload, meditation, yoga is one of those physical, mental ones that often can have a spin off into the emotional. I'm all for, how do I do one thing that supports me in other aspects? So, having good strategies around just taking a break or any of those sorts of things. But if we come across to the cause, you just mentioned it then, right? If I'm saying yes too much, and I've taken on too much, treating the cause, which is how to set boundaries, how to say no with confidence. That's the conversation that we talk about. Let's start to resource women. That's active confidence number 6, right? Set and enforce boundaries and say no with confidence. So starting to treat the cause as well as resourcing you to be able to have the resources available to support yourself when you are in that state. The reality is the world we live in will always mean that there are times when we feel like we've got too much on their plate, even if we're incredible at saying no, and we're really clear about what's important to us and, what we're saying yes to. We will still have times when we do feel a little bit overwhelmed. That's okay. We want resources to be able to help navigate those times. Equally, we need resources to be able to deal with some of those more causal drivers as well. So that's the mental. Let's talk emotional.
So look, emotional resilience, often we don't dig into this enough. It maybe is a little bit unseen or unrecognized as being such a big factor. What we do know is through the pandemic is women took on a huge amount of the emotional load. They were absolutely feeling as though they could not hold all the balls in the air at once. And that, that seems to have a long tail now as we start to come back. And we know here that it's important to start to think about where are the places, where's my network, who's in my team, who have I got good relationships, and making sure that we actually attend to relationships, that we don't let those slide to the side because we're feeling so overwhelmed, like we can't do everything. But it is often our relationships that really fuel us when we are feeling overloaded emotionally. And I think, one of the lovely female leaders that we've worked with in the last year or so, Teresa, was fantastic at recognizing this. And she would say to her team, look, if I've got big things to do, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fantastic. My empathy bucket, my emotional resilience is really high. I can deal with just about everything. Come at me with all the big problems. But by Thursday and particularly Friday, my empathy bucket, my emotional resilience is much lower. So I know that that's not a good time to really try and face some of those big things. And if I have got something big, I'll tend to, as all possible, make sure I push that into the next week. And again, it's just recognizing your own rhythms, your own capacity, and being willing to start to experiment and say, this is okay for me here, but actually it doesn't work for me there. There's a lot of things that I think about raising some of this awareness and making some conscious choices about what I can engage with and what I won't do right now.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is building your support network and asking for help, right? It's one thing to have a support network. It's another thing to really leverage that and ask for help from a place of personal power as well. And again, chapter 9, ask for help. We talk about that in all our work as well. So lots to dig in here. The fourth one is around spiritual resilience. Here, there's lots of different dimensions to this. In the context of this conversation, we talk a lot about meaning and purpose in context of career as well. We know that particularly through the pandemic, there was a lot of spotlight. You couldn't help but start to think about when everything else is stripped away, you couldn't help to look at what you're doing day in, day out, and how the sort of meaning, engagement, motivation drivers that you either had or didn't have equally. And so again, I think consciousness, starting to even just think about this, is powerful in context of this. We'll talk more about it in next week's webinar. There's a lot of layers to this in terms of understanding what's important to you. Get clear in chapter 1 of the book, is start of the conversation here. But I think just awareness around purpose and meaning in context of career can be really valuable when we're thinking about this conversation around spiritual resilience.
Yeah, again, a very underleveraged and maybe unrecognized area. What is going on for me? What is actually fueling me? What is, giving me more resilience, making me feel as though I can meet challenges and that sort of thing? And what's diminishing that? What's the places where I feel, actually I'm, it's harder and I don't necessarily have what it takes in these circumstances? Noticing that can often be a really good clue around what gives you meaning, what creates purpose in your world. And if we're not connected to those things, we very often find our resilience is much lower. So it's a really good place to start to gain more self-awareness, ask ourselves good questions, think about where could I start to connect in, get more clear, and make some choices that are going to serve me better in order to have that resilience. And I'm looking forward to seeing, what comes out as we always unpack more things in our webinars and work on this together. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, so next week, we'll make sure the link's below if you want to attend that webinar. Obviously, lots for us to talk about on this conversation. If you want to go and get a copy of Core Confidence book, lots we've shared already, lots of stuff to dig into around this as well. If you're new to our world, or if you know someone who could benefit from our confidence conversations, we'd love for you to share this with them, tag them below. And of course, head over to our Facebook page, lots of videos over there for you to dig into as you start to unpack your relationship with Core Confidence. And of course, if and when you're ready to go deeper with your relationship with Core Confidence, visit our website, coreconfidence.com.au.